Hello and welcome back to Culinary Haven. We love Chinese food, and with the upcoming Chinese New Year, which is on the 5th of February this year, we thought it would be a good idea to prepare a traditional dish for the Chinese New Year's feast, the dumplings. Let's begin. There are many variations of the filling for the dumplings, but the dough is always the same. It's very simple: water and flour, or flour and water. We'll need 2 cups of plain flour and 180 ml of warm water. And the filling that we're making today is pork and prawn. So for that we'll need 300 grams of minced pork, fatty pork, 300 grams of prawns, peeled and deveined, 150 grams of mangetout, 4 sprigs of spring onion, and 2 teaspoons of finely chopped minced or grated ginger. And the seasoning will be a teaspoon of black pepper, a teaspoon of salt, 3 tablespoons of Chinese rice wine, cooking wine, or if you don't have that, you can use dry sherry, and 3 tablespoons of soy sauce, also 1 teaspoon of sesame oil, and 2 tablespoons of cold water. And we'll start with preparing the dough. So we'll put a medium-sized bowl, 2 cups of plain flour goes in, 180 ml of warm water. Stir it in. You can use a spatula, chopsticks, fork, anything you like. Start the dough just by stirring. Now I'm going to switch and we'll just do it by hand. To prepare the dough, it will take approximately 10 minutes. From just this mess to a lovely elastic dough will take 10 minutes. In a minute I'm going to transfer the dough from the bowl onto the worktop and continue kneading there. It's just putting it together in a manageable piece of dough, and then we'll continue there. That's it, and I'll continue kneading on the worktop. Now just continue kneading the dough here. Just with the palm of your hand, push it and pull it back, like so. Interesting that the dough for the Chinese dumplings is exactly the same as the dough for Polish pierogi. It's a small world indeed. The dough has come together, but it's still very rough and grainy, and what we're looking for is a very smooth and elastic dough. And we'll continue kneading until it gets tough too, because it's very soft now, it's getting smoother, but at the same time, at some point it will be more difficult to stretch it, and that means that the dough is ready. Not ready to use, but ready to rest. Same motion all the time. We're nearly there. Like I said, it takes about 10 minutes for the dough. From the beginning, when you just pour the water onto the flour, to the moment when the dough is ready. As you can see, it's getting into a stiff little ball of dough, which shows us that the dough is getting actually ready. It's getting a really nice texture. It's not difficult, it's just, it takes a bit of time, but I'm sure that 10 minutes is not too much time. It's actually really, really difficult now to stretch, and it actually means that the dough is ready. And I'm going to form it into a ball. It's smooth, but not perfectly smooth. It's still a little bit sort of grainy, but after it's rested, it will be absolutely perfectly silky smooth. And now we're going to dust the bowl a little bit with the flour and put the dough this little ball of dough back into the bowl. We'll need to cover it with a damp cloth. If you're not sure if it's damp or maybe a little bit too wet, what you could do is just put it inside a clean towel and wring it like this to take off the excess moisture, and then put that cloth, cover the dough, and cover the bowl with either a lid or cling film. I'm going to cover it with a little so-called cover mate, a sort of a kitchen version of a shower cap. And we're going to let it rest for 1 hour, but we'll come back in 30 minutes and check on it and see how it's doing. As the dough resting, we'll prepare the filling. 300 grams of minced pork. We use a pork belly, quite fatty pork belly that we mince ourselves, but if you don't have a mincer, you can just buy pork mince. 300 grams of fresh prawns, which we'll finely chop. Tails here. The prawns are peeled and deveined, but for some reason they still have tiny little tails. These prawns are so fresh. I'm actually struggling to straighten them. That's how you can tell the freshness of the prawn. The more rigid it is, the fresher it is. So you can use any prawns. It's actually sort of a crime in my book to chop up this giant prawns. It just unfortunately didn't have any others, so we have to use this. It could be frozen prawns that you just defrost and squeeze the water out and chop them up. It doesn't matter. A whopper. And now 4 sprigs of spring onion, finely chopped. And the last bit of chopping, mangetout, 150 grams, a small pack, in half, and then they give a very lovely color and crunch and flavor. The sweetness of them just adds a very nice taste to this filling. There. We're going to add the ginger, finely minced, chopped, grated, whatever you prefer. I just very finely chopped it, like 2 teaspoons Chinese cooking wine, there's so many variations of different fillings. It could be pork and cabbage, pork and prawn, or lamb, or chicken and mushroom, vegetables with mushrooms, just anything you like. 1 teaspoon of sesame, 1 teaspoon of salt. I forgot to mention 1 teaspoon of sugar and half a teaspoon of black pepper. But you can add more if you wish. 3 tablespoons of soy sauce. And 2 tablespoons of cold water. Mix it all together. And then we'll cover it with a cling film and put it in the fridge for about, actually until the dough is ready to infuse all the flavors and for the mince and the prawns to absorb all the liquids. And now with this all nicely and thoroughly mixed, we're going to cover it with a cling film and put it in the fridge until the dough is ready. It's been 30 minutes and we're going to check on our dough that's been nicely resting. Gonna wake it up and give it a little more kneading on lightly floured surface. It's so soft now. It's just, as you can see, the indentations that I made with my fingers, just very, very soft. We're just gonna do the same what we did before, just a little kneading, but this time in the end you will see how incredibly smooth the dough is. It's just literally a few seconds like this. That's it, that's enough, and the dough is absolutely perfectly smooth. And now it's going back into the bowl for another 30 minutes, and then we'll shape the dumplings. Just a little more flour, and it goes back. The cloth, the damp cloth goes on top, and the plastic cover on top. 30 minutes. It's been another 30 minutes and the dough is now ready. Take it out of the bowl. I'll just dust it a little bit with the flour. It's very smooth and very soft, and we're going to divide it in half, hopefully. And put the other half back in the bowl. We'll work with the first half. We'll just roll it into a sausage shape, about 2.5 centimeters, 1 inch in diameter. And then we'll cut it into small pieces, about 15 grams each, which we'll measure. Check. Now I'm going to cut a small piece just to see if that's the right size. 16 grams, that will do. And now we're going to lightly cover them with the flour and put them here. When you're making the dough, it's also important to bear in mind the humidity, the actual flour. Some flour can have more gluten in it than others, and maybe you need to adjust the amount of water that you're adding. But if after 10 minutes of kneading you see that the dough is still very stiff, you can add maybe a tiny bit of water. But by tiny I mean a tablespoon, not more than that, because it just doesn't take much to change everything. Now I'm going to cover these pieces with the cloth, with the damp cloth, and cover the dough with the plastic cover, and we'll start shaping the dumplings. We'll make one dumpling at a time. So we'll take this small piece of dough and flatten it first, just to make the starting shape. I'm using this Chinese dumpling rolling pin. If you don't have that, just any smaller rolling pin is the best. And now we'll just go in all directions, rolling it into a circle, a very, very thin circle. Doesn't have to be perfect shape-wise. It just have to be very thin. And you can always adjust the shape by stretching it in your hand, because it stretches very well, it's very elastic and it wouldn't tear. And now we put 2 heaped teaspoons of the filling on top in the center. It looks like an awful lot for such a tiny circle, but it's actually fine. We're going to cover it, fold it, and pinch it in the middle like this, sealing it. And then starting from one side, we're going to fold and press, creating this nice pattern, the pleat, like this. Fold and pinch, fold and pinch, and the same on this side. Fold and press, fold and press. And the last little one, just you can pull it, twist and pinch, and then we go around with the fingers, just pressing it to seal it tightly and securely. On to the next. And the last one from the first half of the dough, I did mention that we put them on a parchment lined tray so that we can either cook them straight after we make them, or you can put them on the tray just like this into a freezer, and then when they're frozen you can put them in Ziploc bags and seal them and keep them in the freezer until fancy some dumplings. There, last one. Very, very, very thin, paper thin on your hand. Plenty of filling, see, that much. Fold and press in the middle, and then fold and press to seal. And the other side. And then just go around, pressing it firmly to seal it tightly and securely. There. And we're going to make the rest of the dumplings later. We'll have some filling here left, and if we have any dough left, we can do it with some vegetable filling. I tend to make enough filling so I don't have any leftover filling left, because that would be annoying and a kind of waste. But if I have a little bit of dough left, it's not a big deal. It's just flour and water. The dough can be kept covered tightly for hours. 3, 4, 5 hours is absolutely fine. It won't go bad, it won't go hard. Just make sure that it's tightly covered with plastic. You can put the damp cloth back on top of that piece of dough and put the plastic or a lid or a piece of cling film on top and just keep it on the counter. You don't need to put it in the fridge for another 2, 3, 4, 5 hours. It will be absolutely fine to use. And now we're going to cook the dumplings. We're going to preheat a frying pan or skillet until it's very, very hot. Add 2 tablespoons of groundnut oil. Swirl it around, let it heat up until it's very, very hot, and you can almost see smoke. Groundnut oil has a very high smoking point, and that's why it's very good for frying, and is mostly used in Chinese, Asian cooking. When you will be cooking them, if you will be cooking them from frozen, you just do exactly the same. The heat will defrost and cook them. You don't need to thaw them before you cook them. Just make sure that you freeze them in one layer on a baking tray or a plate or a board lined with parchment, so they don't touch each other, and once they're solid frozen you can put them in a bag. This is it, it's hot enough, and now we're going to put them on the frying pan flat side down. we're going to cook them like this, uncovered for 3 minutes until they're browned on the bottom. We're cooking 8 dumplings. 8 is considered to be a lucky number by Chinese people and by my son. I'll turn it down a little bit because it's smoking now, it's very hot. Just lift it by the ear. There you go. Getting there. Perfect. 1 more minute and then we'll pour some water onto the pan and cover it and steam for 12 minutes. And now I'm going to pour a very small amount of water, about 70-75 mils of water, just a very thin layer to cover the bottom of the pan. Cover it immediately, and the small amount of water will create a lot of steam, and that will cook the dumplings, and we'll cook them for 12 minutes. It's been 6 minutes and we're just checking on them, and you can see how they plumped up, and just cover not to let all the steam out, and cook them for another 6 minutes. It smells amazing. There they are. Ready. By the end of the cooking time, there should be no water left in the pan, and there isn't any. I'm taking it off and lifting them out. Here we are. We're serving the dumplings. We sprinkled some toasted sesame seeds on top and some steamed pak choy, and the dipping sauce is the mixture in equal measures of soy sauce and some black Chinese vinegar. And for some crunch and spice, we're also serving some homemade pickled ginger. Thank you for watching this episode of Culinary Haven. Happy Chinese New Year, everyone, and until next time, bye.